Pledge of Allegiance, and Tim, would you lead us in that?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now observe a moment of silence. Thank you. I did want to report that we do have joining us electronically Kurt Rockwell and Mike Scott.
Did you report out for closed
I did.
session? Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes?
Mr. Ferris, I would like to ask that we hear item 11.2 before 6.1 this evening.
All right. Then we will proceed with those changes. The approval of the minutes. If there were no objections to the minutes as presented, we will move forward and accept those as presented and move to programs and presentations. There are none. Move to public hearing. Item number 1, public hearing on temporary closure of California State Preschool Program at Fowler, Inyakern, and Pierce due to the public health order. Ms. Decker.
Good evening, President Scott, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff, and community. Senate Bill 98 amended Education Code 8209F, authorizing the State Superintendent of Public Instruction to reimburse agencies contracted to operate a California state preschool program that meet certain requirements. On September 18, 2020, the governor signed SB 820, which includes permitting direct service contractors who operate on a local education agency campus that is closed by local or state public health guidance or orders to remain closed and be funded to be operational when the LEA has required the preschools to close. In order to promote continuity of care, the LEA authority that required the preschool's closure is required to discuss in a public hearing the preschool's closure and prepare a plan for safely reopening the preschools as soon as safely possible, but no later than when the LEA campus opens for in-person instruction. SB 820 requires direct service contractors to provide children who are not able to receive in-person services with distance learning services following the guidance issued by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. The 3 district preschools located at Fowler, Inyakern, and Pierce Elementary School campuses are currently closed to in-person learning. However, the staff is continuing to provide distance learning through virtual platforms, including Zoom meetings and private Facebook pages. The preschool supervisors are contacting families on a weekly basis to determine student needs. They are also creating activity bags for the students to provide materials needed to complete the daily activities and lessons being provided. The administration is working on a reopening plan so that when the school district reopens for in-person learning, the preschools are ready to open as well. In compliance with Governor Newsom's issued Executive Order N2520, related to the convening of public meetings in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, public hearing comments were to be submitted in writing or received by telephone no later than noon on October 15, 2020, supporting, opposing, or otherwise commenting on the public hearing item. Emails were to be sent to superintendent@ssusd.org, written correspondence to SSUSD Superintendent, attention Diane Nesland, 113 West Felspar Avenue, Ridgecrest, California, 93555. Telephone comments on the public hearing were to be left on voicemail at 760-499-1600. There are no financial implications at this time. The district will be reimbursed for the maximum reimbursable amount or the net reimbursable program costs without regard to the enrollment and attendance reductions due to the coronavirus. It is recommended that the board conduct a public hearing on the temporary closure of the California State Preschools at Fowler, Inyakern, and Pierce due to the public health order that closed the school district.
Okay, Mrs. Naslin, were there any comments passed on to us on this public hearing? Okay, showing there were none, that will suffice for our public hearing. And we will move on to reports and communication.
Bill, just so you know, Madison joined us. So,
Okay, so we have Madison, our student member, who will provide for us the student members report. Madison Johnson, go ahead.
Hi, okay. So we're going to start with Murray's report. Murray Middle School. As we wrapped up the quarter last week, many teachers gave students time to make up work and improve their grades. Our office team has been working hard to encourage students to come to class. We have greatly reduced the number of absences and are now working hard to engage students in the work being assigned. ASB students plan activities and spirit days every Friday. Recent activities include sports day, fall day, and neon day, as well as chalk wars for turkeys and COVID-19 chalk art. In October, they will host a Hispanic Heritage activity during DL Sport as well. This month, we also began a number of clubs that students are participating in virtually after school, including Math Club, Mustang Club, and Safe Space Club. Murray has had several drive-through pickups for parents to pick up consumables, and so far I've handed out 534 bags of consumables. We are excited for the second quarter getting underway this week. Go Mustangs! All right, next we have Monroe Middle School. Our teachers continue to refine their teaching process and distance learning to be their best for students. Many have created fun and engaging ways for students to participate in class. James Monroe has also started to enhance rewards for school-wide expectations. Each week, students are being recognized for great attendance. The goal was to create a twofold recognition, where all students who are working on improving get at least one entry into a weekly drawing. The team also wanted to recognize students who are consistently doing the right thing every day. So students can also get an additional entry for every total percentage point of attendance. This means that students who have 100% attendance get 100 entries into the drawing. Students also get awards for participating in social and spirit events to keep our positive school culture alive. Students are doing things like bottle flipping and creating ice cream sundaes. Students continue to be recognized in our weekly announcements and videos, as well as Milcom certificates and coupons donated by local businesses like Pizza Factory. Thank you to all of the local benefactors who are still partnering with schools at this difficult time to create incentives and build hope. Through student dedication, parental support, and staff hard work, attendance has risen 1% each week for 6 weeks, and students are now at 91% attendance school-wide. Way to go, Monroe. All right, we have Mesquite now. Our first quarter is proving to be a successful one. We have many students who are earning lots of credits virtually and had our first graduate of the 2020-2021 school year. Mesquite students participated in Saracosa's virtual Career Explorer Day on September 22nd. Our juniors and seniors had the opportunity to learn about educational pathways offered at Saracosa from the counseling team, CTE advisor, and various faculty. Students were also able to hear from a panel of local industry leaders about related career opportunities and our values. Our ASB students are working hard to keep our campus connected during this time of distance learning. We had our second school-wide community and hosted our first school-wide flip grid challenge. Students competed in a 30-second bottle flipping competition, and the winner won a Taco Bell gift card. Last week, we were fortunate to have a workshop with matters for student leaders. The workshop consisted of laying the groundwork for becoming a restorative practice campus, and the staff has been working with our consultant throughout this year. We are also busy planning our annual Halloween event, virtual style, of course. Our students will be getting into the Halloween spirit with the Halloween decorating contest days and the school-wide Halloween trip and Kahoot game. Awesome. All right, and lastly, we have Burroughs High School. Burroughs High School finished its first quarter of distance learning last Friday, October 9th. Unbelievably, we are now verging on the completion of our 9th week of distance learning. Our sports programs are up and running again. With everyone's season being pushed onto winter or spring, distributing practice time is challenging, but coaches in the athletic department are working together to make practices run smoothly. Of course, all sports follow the COVID regulations, and athletes must be cleared on the new athletic clearance website before they can practice. And counselors recently made a video detailing important senior information concerning topics such as financial aid, applying for college, and checking credit. As a follow-up, they visited senior government and economic classes to address questions and concerns. ASB continues to work hard to engage its students using Spirit Days and newly introduced challenges. Recently, ASB has received enthusiastic participation in the Pet Trick Challenge, Art Challenge, Monochromatic Fashion Challenge, and Quarantine Outfit Day. The staff of the Burroughs Blockbuster, our school newspaper, has also been instrumental in maintaining the school climate. Now the entire community can keep up with Burroughs online on the Blockbuster Blast. The Blockbuster urges everyone to visit its website at bhsblast.org. Lastly, ASU would like to personally extend a huge thank you to all district teachers at this time. Their devotion, hard work, and flexibility in the face of adversity and frustration are inspiring, and students are benefiting greatly from it. So we thank you. And that's all for my report.
Thank you so much, Madison. We really appreciate that. We move on to reports from members of the board. Mike, anything from you? Kurt, anything from you? I just wanted to comment that you'll see on the screen behind me here the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education goals. And this is one of the things that came out of our workshop on the goals to kind of keep them in front of us in a better way so that we can continue to see that that truly is what we're holding as our objectives as a board. I will then move to Superintendent's report. Dr. Ostash.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Good evening, everyone, and for those who are watching or listening at home, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate that. In month one, our total enrollment was 4,955. Last year, this time, we were at 5,144, which shows us down 189 in relative terms. I thought I would note that as I looked through the data, it was of particular interest that we were actually down in kindergarten, I should say the transitional kindergarten and kindergarten, by 86. Last year we were at 419, this year at 333, and that to me seemed like a very obvious point to make that, of course, kindergarten is not a required attendance, and so you can see with the distance learning and such, the parents might obviously have elected to keep their children at home. So we look forward to a healthy future, and we look forward to growing those numbers back where they have been. I wanted to commend our school administrators. We have a team of approximately 30 leaders in the district. This is week of the school administrator, and I have to say it's never been more complex and challenging for school administrators to lead their schools and to lead their departments. The uncertainty and the constant change has definitely ushered in an era of more stress than normal. There was always plenty of it to go around back then, but there's definitely new and additional stress. Makes the job strenuous. So I just want to say, for those who are in the audience tonight, I appreciate the teamwork and all the commitment. And for those who are not here, most of our team's not here, I greatly admire and appreciate all of our team. And I just appreciate the job they're doing and the commitment that they have made to our students and our staff. So thank you, Sierra Sands school administrators. I also wanted to acknowledge, obviously, this continues to be a different board meeting than we've had prior to pandemic. I was gratified to receive notice just yesterday from the city of Ridgecrest indicating that we may now begin planning for, if we so choose, and we so choose. I think the public access to public meetings is paramount, and I know that we all feel that way within the board and the district. So recognizing that we have now been invited to reconsider our approach carefully, there are ways of socially distancing and meeting a certain maximum capacity in here. So beginning right away, we will be modifying our board packet postings to reflect the change so that the public is allowed to attend our regular monthly board meetings starting right away next month at the November 19 board meeting. So really excited about that. And that brings me to what rightfully so is of biggest importance by everyone in the community, which is winter schools reopening. And of Of course, one of the things is, in a sense, our schools are open because we never shut down the learning process. We have a very rigorous and highly engaging educational process through distance learning. We know there are inherent strengths and weaknesses in distance learning. We know that for some students, they're thriving in ways they've never thrived before. We also know there are some students who are not, they're striving, but they may not be receiving what they need and expect. And so that's something we have to keep in the front of mind. And then there's probably a great many of students somewhere in between who are just finding the way, like most of us, to adapt and to deal with what ultimately will be a temporary solution. I realize temporary can feel like it drags on, but it will be a temporary solution. So regarding schools reopening, we will be in Sierra Sands, like many districts in this county and around the state, we will be reopening in a phased manner. And I'll be sending some specific correspondence out to faculty and staff and parents tomorrow, giving more information than I gave on October 13. And I just want to highlight that on October 13, just a couple days ago, I sent a message home that describes how our Kern County officially transitioned out of California's most restrictive purple tier on Tuesday and was placed in the less restrictive tier, which is the red tier, under the state's blueprint for a safer economy. After a mandatory 2-week waiting period, that waiting period started on Tuesday, so we're in that 2-week waiting period currently. School districts may choose to identify ways of physically reopening as early as Wednesday, October 28. Given the continued restrictions and the strenuous requirements by the state, our County Department of Public Health, the COVID-19 Workplace Safety Plan, and negotiations with all 3 of our bargaining units, the reopening of our schools, including our own, will be most successfully accomplished by phasing and scaling that effort up. I'd like to invoke something that has been discussed a few times at board meetings and district leadership meetings and negotiation sessions, and I'd like to speak to them again, which is the board set forth our guiding principles, which are a great touchstone to help make all the little decisions and the bigger decisions as we move along. And those guiding principles are these: health and safety of students and staff, follow the law and take all reasonable steps to follow appropriate guidance, socialization and connection with students, provide nutritional services to our students, and 5th, optimize our means of educating our students. So in keeping true to those principles, those guiding principles, we have unveiled to our 3 bargaining units the initial planning process and the goals that we intend to meet. It will essentially be a 3-phase process. Phase 1 and 2 are not chronologically dependent on the other. They actually can both go at the same time. In phase 1 and 2, we envision, pending approval and satisfactory agreements with the bargaining units, we anticipate a target timeline of implementing in November. Phase 1 would be our small cohort program. So the small cohort program is a set of rules and regulations that the state pushed out many weeks ago that described the importance of serving students who have some of the greatest needs or who are most at risk. And a prominent example of that would be students who have individualized education plans, who are in our special education population, or perhaps students who are English learners, foster youth, or a number of other at-risk factors, some of which we, as a local education agency, are at liberty to identify based upon what we see as our needs. So for us, we, in phase 1, see rolling out, for small cohort, 9 classrooms of special education services. 6 of those classrooms would be at Richmond Elementary School for our moderate and severe needs students. 2 of those classrooms would be at Gateway Elementary School, which houses 2 of our special education preschool classes. And 1 of those classes would be for our 18 to 22-year-olds with severe needs at Burroughs High School campus. So that small cohort, the initial phase and scale up would be for those 9 classrooms with those students. And we could move upon successful implementation, a little bit of routine with transportation, food services, all of the protocols that are necessary. We could then scale up and identify more classrooms to bring into the fold until we've reached, well, of course, until we've reached everyone is the idea. Phase 2 also plans and targeted timeline of implementation in November is what we're describing as supervised distance learning hubs on campus. We know that that a tremendous individual and group effort has been put into lifting up a high quality, synchronous and asynchronous, highly engaging distance learning program. And so we want to make sure that to the extent that we have distance learning in place, we want to leverage that to the greatest ability possible as we move into our phased in on campus. So there are some students who are struggling with distance learning. There are some who are not, and most are somewhere in the middle. But what we want to do is start with our earliest learners, the ones who are at the greatest risk of stunting the numeracy and the literacy process. And so starting with transitional kindergarten and first grade, starting in November, and prioritizing based upon students who are not adequately attending, participating, or engaging, or also students in the unduplicated pupil percentage count, which is the group of students that all of the state's research has identified as our state's most at-risk students. We would start with those priorities so that we could establish single cohorts of no greater than 14 students in a classroom, and any of those transitional kindergarten or first grade students in those priorities to start with who would like and whose families would prefer that they're on campus receiving their distance learning in a classroom supervised by Sierra Sands professionals, that we would invite them in to do that. And as we experience success with that, we would scale that up. The next group would be 2nd and 3rd graders, on up to 4th and 5th graders, and of course, then we'd move into the secondary schools. And then phase 3 would be that significant effort of actually returning students in a hybrid fashion for on-campus instruction, right? That change from distance learning to an on-campus instructional program, that's going to require significant work and effort and planning and adapting and negotiating so that we have a safe return, and that all students have access to on-campus learning. Now, we also realize that part of the planning, which is part of the reason why it makes it so complex, is that there will be some number of students where the family doesn't determine that it's time for them to go back for on-campus. And so part of that is repositioning and reassigning our almost 600, well, for faculty, it's about 300. So we have almost 300 teachers, some of whom will have to be reassigned, and student assignments to teachers may have to be reassigned because we'll be repositioning our workforce to have essentially on-campus teachers and distance learning teachers. At least that's the way we envision it being most successful. So that's a large and significant amount of work to be done. It's already underway. The work is already underway, but it's going to take some time to lift it up. So we thought it was really important, very important, to, as an intermediary and as a more immediate effort of service, to envision and come up with these phase 1 and 2 ideas, the small cohorts and the more immediate service for those who would prefer to get their distance learning under some supervision on campus. So that's a little bit of a thumbnail sketch with information that will go out in writing to everyone tomorrow that will describe some of that in a little more detail. And it's important to note that a letter is required to come from me to represent the district to the County of Kern, to Dr. Mary Barlow, our County Superintendent of Schools, declaring that we are reopening our schools. I've developed that letter, and I will be submitting it in a timely fashion prior to October 27 that indicates that we will be, like many, many districts in our county, reopening our schools in a phased manner. And lastly, I wanted to highlight something very important, in that this is Emotional Wellness Month. Emotional wellness refers to our ability to process feelings in a healthy, positive way and manage the stress of everyday life. And that was from a resource of nationaltoday.com. And I know that, and we know, my team, we know that that everyday life is extremely challenging for so many people. Routines are different. The delivery of, in our case, delivery of instruction is different. The way teachers teach is different. But we also have changes in family dynamics, changes in family stability and community stability, and these are all things that are affecting us. We owe it to each other to recognize that signs and symptoms of emotional stress come in many facets. Some of them are obvious, some of them are not obvious at all, and that's just important to know. We need to be patient with one another. We need to listen, and we need to reflect. We need to understand that some people are behaving in ways that they may not typically behave. We need to be patient with that. We all need to maintain a sense of empathy and be alert so that we can connect support and resources for people who might need it. And I know that there is distress among students and staff, parents, business owners, anyone in the community. And I guess I would implore all of us that if someone is not in a place to take charge of his or her own emotional wellness, that if any of us is in a place that we recognize something, and that if there's anything we can do to help position that person in a place of emotional wellness, that we do that. We take the time to do that. If we're able to help, please try and find a way to help. Maybe we can help, maybe any one of us can help directly, or maybe it's indirect. Just nudging someone to seek that help, or nudging someone who we think might be better positioned to help, to nudge that person to go help. So if you're in a place to help, please make that offer, and please intervene for somebody's emotional wellness. That concludes my report, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Ferris.
Thank you, Dr. Ostash. I just want to make a comment about the phase-in plan that the district is moving forward with, and compliment. It's apparent to me that those guiding principles are driving the kinds of decisions we're making, which I believe is critical and important. And I believe it's also critical and important to recognize the deliberate nature with which we're moving forward, but yet the cautious nature with which we're moving forward. I know that the intent is to see that we make small, deliberate steps that we do not have to backtrack from. And I really appreciate that thoughtful approach on behalf of the administration and the team, to see that we can move our community forward in this way. And in relationship to the kinds of stresses that we're dealing with in this time, what comes to me consistently is the elements of thoughtfulness and care. And I think it is just critical that we recognize those traits in each other and call for those traits in each other as we move forward in this difficult time, because there is so much that everyone is dealing with. We can get through this best together with those elements, so I appreciate that as well. Any other comments from board members at this time? Then I will invite the report to the Board of Trustees from the Desert Area Teachers Association.
Good evening, everybody. I just submitted grades, and I've been up setting up surveys for data and fielding a lot of emails, and I don't remember the proper way to greet you all, but I do respectfully greet you.
And we will receive it with thoughtfulness and care.
Okay. So here we are. We're 9 weeks in. It's been kind of a tough 9 weeks. Normally at this point, it's my favorite time because we've established our classroom culture. We have our own vocabulary. Each class has its own, secondary level. We've got 150 kids. 5 classes, and each class has its own personality, its own culture, our own vocabulary, and it's fun. It's hard, but it's fun. And the fun element is gone, right? It's still fun. I still love being around the kids. We all still like being around the kids. But a lot of it is gone, and it's necessary. Our lives, our health comes before all else. But what's troubling for us teachers, is that we're the ones out there. We're the ones out there on the front lines, right? It's us, it's the kids, it's the parents. And we're all in this together in the sense that we all care and we all want the best for our kids. And we're torn between giving them the most rigorous academics that we can to prepare them for next year and to recognizing their humanity and their frailty. And it's a constant battle. And to be honest, we're just getting it from each other, from our colleagues. There's nothing else really coming down. And policies are changing on the sites, and we're expected to just jump in and fix it. And we're educated. We're very, very educated. And we care a lot, but we're humans. And I feel that often that's sort of forgotten. It's just expected that we'll get in and do our job. And a lot of us are really overwhelmed in ways we haven't been before. And a lot of us are showing up and giving lessons in a more creative way than we ever thought possible. And our kids are learning. I get very frustrated when people say kids are falling behind. They're not falling behind. They're right where they need to be. But it's hard. And I feel that too often the humanity of the teachers, those of us on the front lines, is ignored. And parents have it hard. I don't know how they're doing it. My kids went off to school every day. It's hard on the parents, and it's hard on us. And I think it's mighty easy for people who aren't in the classroom, who aren't on Zoom with all the limitations of Zoom, and there are a lot of limitations on Zoom. We're not paid subscribers. There are a lot of limitations. There are amazing limitations in Canvas. That was not created to do what we need it to do. And with all that, I feel that our voices aren't always heard. Teachers know. Teachers know. And I feel like too often we're ignored. And we're moving into things now. Things are going to be changing again. And we really need to be listened to. Members of DATA are not shy. They talk to me a lot. They respond to surveys a lot. We have a lot to say. We care about our parents. We communicate with our parents. They communicate with us. We care about our kids. And we just need to make sure that our professionalism, our knowledge, is recognized and valued, because it doesn't always feel like it is. Also, it's really cool that we get to have the public back in here in November. But it's late November, after the elections, and it seems to me in 2020, with everything that's going on, that to not have the public come in, to not be fighting, to not be insisting that the public come in, when parents are sending their kids, when parents are seeing their kids in a way they, in school, they haven't seen this before, right? Parents are being asked to do things they haven't done before, and they're doing it. They love their kids. They're doing great. We're all there for each other. But to not even have them to be able to come in and speak live is wrong. And that there hasn't been a more focused attempt to change that policy from the board, frankly, seems to me wrong. Of all times and all years, this is when we need to have it open. Maybe parents come, maybe they don't. Maybe they say negative things. Maybe community members praise us. It doesn't matter. It just seems wrong that we don't let the public back in until well into November. It's troubling to me. I like to get up here and say really positive things, but right now, it's really difficult. My students have done some fabulous things. We were talking yesterday in a staff meeting. Every teacher has something that they're proud of, seeing their kids in ways they hadn't seen them before, and that's exciting. But we're professionals. We want to be heard, and we think the public should be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Now would be the time for the Board of Trustees report by the California School Employees Association. Is there someone here to represent them today? If not, we will move on to communications from the public. Were there any communications from the public provided through the avenues? No, there weren't. Then we will move on to Educational Administration. We'll move to, actually, we'll slide in here the 11.1 item. Mrs. Smith? 11.2, I'm sorry.
Good evening, President Scott, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, and members of community and staff. I believe we have 2 consultants on the meeting tonight to participate in this particular item. I was just checking to make sure. You see Joel Kirshenstein and I believe Kevin McCaddy are participating virtually in this item tonight. So at the regular board meeting of August 17th, 2017, the board approved resolution number 1/1718 to allow the district staff to offer the vacated real property of Rand Elementary School to public entities and nonprofits pursuant to Education Code Section 17465, 17489, 17464/81365, and/or Government Code Section 54220. Several years after this notice was posted, interest was expressed in the property. After several conversations with our consultants, we all agreed that for purposes of transparency and to make sure that we are current with Ed Code and that we're following these guidelines, that we would go through a repeat of some of the process that was conducted in 2017. Upon approval by the board of this resolution, public notice will be given to the appropriate public entities and nonprofits by individual letter and by publication in a newspaper of general circulation once a week, at least 5 days apart for 3 successive weeks. We'll be posting in the Antelope Valley Press, in the Bakersfield Californian, and in the Daily Independent for those 3 weeks. Interested public entities and nonprofits have 60 days to respond. If no response is received by such entities during this time, the board may sell the property in a public bid option, and that would be to private parties. So we give the first opportunity to public entities, and then private parties have the opportunity to bid on the property. There are no financial implications. The superintendent recommends that the board adopt resolution number 11/2021, authorizing offer to sell, lease real property and publish notices in the local newspaper.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions from board members? Comments? Tim? No?
No.
Mike or Kurt, any comments or questions?
No comments here.
Okay, I appreciate this coming back before us again. I know we did have a discussion on this before, and there was concern that we follow the law very carefully, and also to see that we maximize the value of this property on behalf of the taxpayers of Sierra Sands Unified School District. So I appreciate that, and I will call for the question unless anybody else has any comments at this time. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Mike Scott?
Aye.
Mike Scott is aye. We have Kurt Rockwell.
Aye.
Tim Johnson?
Aye.
And myself, aye. That makes it unanimous. And then that will bring us back to Educational Administration 6.1, approval for purchase of document camera for state and school. And that's Ms. Decker.
Good evening again. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act establishes 2 new funds to which non-public school equitable services requirements apply. Specifically, a local education agency that receives funds under either the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund or the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund are required to provide equitable services to students and teachers in non-public schools in the same manner as provided under Section 1117 and 8501 of the Every Student Succeeds Act. The services and benefits available to non-public school students and teachers are the same as those available to public school students and teachers. Control of the funds for services and assistance provided to non-public school students and teachers under the CARES Act programs and title to materials, equipment, and property purchased with such funds must be in a public agency, and a public agency must administer such funds, materials, equipment, and property. In other words, no funds may go directly to a non-public school. In addition, services for non-public school students and teachers must be provided by a public agency directly or through contract with another public or private entity, Section 18005B of the CARES Act. St. Anne's School indicated their intent to participate in a federally funded program with Sierra Sands for the 2021 school year on May 28, 2020. Consultation occurred on September 3, 2020. St. Anne's School received a waiver to return to in-person learning recently. In response to the need for increased and improved technology services for teachers and students, they would like to purchase 11 document cameras to be used by teachers in conjunction with smartboards currently in the classrooms. The document cameras will allow teachers to project instructional materials onto the smartboard, which will help maintain the social distancing requirements for in-person learning. Each document camera is $888, and the total cost for 11 document cameras is $10,573.86. The cost will be funded out of Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act funding for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, which allows any activities authorized under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, IDEA, Family Literacy Act, and the McKinney-Vento. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the purchase of the document cameras to support in-person learning at St. Anne's School for the 2021 school year.
Recommended action.
Move the recommended action.
Gentlemen on electronics, if you could identify yourself as you move or second, we're having a difficult time making a distinction.
Mr. Scott,
Was
seconded.
Mike.
Okay, so Mike Scott seconded. Thank you. Any questions or comments at this time on this issue? Any questions or comments from staff? If not, I'll call for the roll call vote. Mike Scott,
Mike, aye.
Kurt Rockwell,
Aye from Kurt.
Daniel
Aye.
Johnson, aye, and myself, aye. That is unanimous. Move to 6.2, appointment of industry business members for the Career Technical Stakeholder Consultation Advisory Committee. Ms. Decker.
Okay. California Education Code 8070 requires that the governing board of each school district participating in a career technical education program, or Carl Perkins, shall appoint a Career Technical Education Stakeholder Consultation Advisory Committee to develop recommendations on the program and to provide liaison between the district and potential employers. There have been significant changes and additions to the consultation process in the new Perkins 5 law that expands the scope of stakeholders who must be consulted in developing a local application. There is an increased focus on including local employers and business leaders to ensure a match between the skills needed in local markets and those possessed by students who complete CTE programs. During the comprehensive needs assessment process, the school must consult with a diverse body of stakeholders, which at a minimum includes representatives of the CTE education programs, secondary teachers, administrators, counselors, state, regional, or local workforce development boards, local or regional business leaders, parents and students, and representatives of special populations. Activities of the Career Technical Stakeholder Consultation Advisory Committee may include, but are not limited to, providing input on annual updates to the Comprehensive Needs Assessment, ensuring programs of study are responsive to community employment needs, aligned with employment priorities in the state, region, or local economy, labor market information, current, intermediate, or long-term labor market projections, employer input into development, implementation of programs of study to ensure the alignment with skills required by employers, including identification of relevant standards, curriculum, industry-recognized credentials, current technology and equipment, identify and encourage opportunities for work-based learning, ensure funding is used in a coordinated manner with other local resources. The following business community representatives have volunteered for and are recommended for appointment to the Sierra Sands Unified School District Career Technical Stakeholder Consultation Advisory Committee. We have Carl Etling, who is a Boeing field rep. Terry Hack is an ADT counselor with Saracoso. Nicole Hennebury is an ADT counselor as well with Saracoso. Ray Hawker is a video and photography group employee of NOC-WD. Jennifer Marshall is a job development specialist with Saracoso. Betty Moody represents the Expanding Your Horizons Committee with NOC-WD. Mike Peterson is an engineer at NOC-WD. Ron Pruitt is a supervisor at NAS. Jenny Rodriguez is from the Employee Training Resources or America's Job Center, as well as David Santiago. Diana Sleva is STEM and student, she does STEM and student work for NOC-WD. Tony Small is a supervisory program manager at NOC-WD. Diana Taylor is an environmental health and safety specialist with Boeing at China Lake. We have Alan Van Nevel, who is a research physicist at NOC-WD, and Angel Zamaron, who is our STEM outreach and student employment representative from NOC-WD. And in addition, we have committee members that are the teaching staff, students, parents, counselors, and administrators. Incidental costs for the Stakeholder Consultation Advisory Committee are considered a reasonable expense through the Carl Perkins 5 funds and are anticipated to be less than $200. The Carl Perkins 5 allocation for this year is $55,370. It is recommended that the board appoint the individuals named above to the Sierra Sands Unified School District Career Technical Stakeholder Consultation Advisory Committee for the 2021 school year.
Move recommended action.
Mike, second.
Thank you, Mike. Motion by Tim, second by Mike. Any questions or comments from board members? Any comments from staff? If not, we'll call for the vote. Mike Scott?
Aye.
Kurt Rockwell? Kurt?
Sorry, aye.
That's okay. Tim Johnson?
Aye.
And myself, aye. It makes it unanimous. We go to 6.3, approval of Elevation Education 3-year agreement.
Sierra Sands Unified School District applies for and is in receipt of multiple federal supplemental funding sources known as Title programs. Title III is known as the Language Instruction for English Learner and Immigrant Student Acts. The overarching purpose is to ensure that English learner students, including immigrant children, attain English language proficiency and meet the same challenging state academic standards that other students are expected to meet. Local education agencies must use Title III funds to supplement state language instruction educational programs designed to assist EL students' achievement goals. The Elevation Education web-based program has been selected to manage and share EL data, required parent and guardian forms, student progress, reclassification data, and student monitoring. Elevation makes the process of understanding the needs of EL students and their data straightforward and actionable to district stakeholders, all in one convenient place. School sites and the English learner teacher on special assignment can manage complex program requirements and build the capacity of teachers to serve multilingual learners. Contracts over $10,000 require board approval. The Elevation Education 3-year contract is $15,300 and will be funded through the district's Title III allocation, which is $43,781.67 for this year. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Elevation Education contract as presented.
Move recommended action.
Mike, second.
Motion by Tim, Mike seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any comments from staff? If not, I'll call for the vote. Mike?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. Brings us to 6.4, approval of amendment to the Kern County Interagency Kern Integrated Data System Agreement. Ms. Savko.
Good evening, President Scott virtually, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff, and community. In 2017, the Kern Education Pledge was established based on the shared belief that no single program or institution can single-handedly solve the complex, large-scale education and workforce readiness challenges facing our community. Improving student outcomes at scale requires innovative and sustained collaboration across institutions to achieve significant and lasting change. As a result, the educational leaders in Kern County created an alliance to begin the work of transforming our educational system from cradle to career. The Kern Education Pledge goals include: increase the percentage of children entering school ready to learn, increase the percentage of students reading at grade level by the end of third grade, demonstrating core math proficiencies by the end of fifth grade, demonstrating reading and math proficiency by the end of eighth grade, increase the percentage of high school students graduating ready to succeed, increase the percentage of students enrolling in and completing post-secondary programs and entering the skilled workforce. In 2018, a pilot program including 9 Kern County school districts, one of which was Sierra Sands, Cal State Bakersfield, and the Kern Community College District, was established to increase the rate of student achievement for Kern County students by providing structure and a framework for the sharing of student data through the Data Warehouse Agreement, now renamed as Kern Integrated Data System, or KIDS. The amendment to the Kern County Interagency KIDS Agreement includes the commencement of fee-based services assessed annually for the continued participation and data upload into the KIDS electronic data warehouse. The Sierra Sands Unified School District, a member of Pilot Group 1, fee assessment will commence in January 2021. The KIDS fee will be calculated using average daily attendance, ADA, at second principal apportionment, P2. The fee will be $5 per ADA. Based on an estimated 5,000 ADA, the fees associated with the 2021 allocation will be approximately $25,000. The source of the funding will be the CARES Act one-time funding. It is the superintendent's recommendation to approve the amendment to the Kern County Interagency Kern Integrated Data Systems Agreement as presented.
Move recommended action.
Mike, second.
It's moved and seconded. Any questions or comments by the board members? Any comments by staff? And I call for the vote. Mike?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous. 7.1 is policy development and review. There are no items under 7. We move to personnel administration.
Move 81, 82, 83, 84.
I have a motion for 1, 2, 3, and
Second.
4. Been seconded by
Second, Kurt. Second.
Kurt. Thank you, Kurt. Any questions or comments from board members? Any comments from staff? Now I call the question. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Aye for Mr. Scott. Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Myself, it's unanimous. We move on to general administration, gifts to the district. Mr. Johnson, could you read the gifts to the district,
Sure.
please?
The following gifts have been received. The Rotary Club of Indian Kern donated school supplies with an estimated cash value of $300 to be used by students at Indian Kern Elementary School. And Betty Spindler made a donation of an electric ceramic kiln with an estimated value of $5,000 and clay supplies with estimated value, cash value of $1,000 to be used by the art department of Burroughs High School. I move that we accept the donations as to provide support to the district.
It's been moved,
This is Kurt. Michael, second.
seconded by Kurt. Any comments from board members? If not, all in favor individually, Mr. Scott,
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
and myself, aye, it's unanimous. Okay, and we move to report to the board on the nature of the resolution of complaints regarding the deficiencies related to instructional materials, emergency or urgent facilities condition, pose a threat to the health and safety of pupils or staff, teacher vacancy, or misalignment as required by the Williams Act.
That would be me. I'm coming from Mr. Ald as he's virtual this evening, but there have been no complaints in this area.
I would suggest we just accept the report since there's no complaint filed.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Scott, seconded by Mr. Johnson. Any questions or comments? Take a vote. Mr. Scott?
I don't think we need a vote since it's just a report.
Oh, I think you said you moved to accept the report, so. So we will accept the report.
Yeah, just wanted to move the update.
Okay, I couldn't hear what you said, but I'm sure it was profound. We'll move to item 3, adoption of district goals.
In accordance with Board Policy 0200, Goals for the School District, as part of the governing board's responsibility to set direction for the school district, the board shall adopt long-term goals focused on the achievement of all district students. The district's goals shall be aligned with the district's vision, mission, philosophy, and priorities. The 2020-2023 Sierra Sands Unified School District goals reflect the alignment of federal, state, and local efforts to positively impact student achievement, as well as the commitment to engage in a collective effort with families and community to benefit all students. District goals have been developed to align with the 8 state priorities, basic conditions, implementation of state standards, course access, pupil achievement, other student outcomes, parent involvement, pupil engagement, and school climate, the local accountability plan metrics, and local priorities. As has been past practice, it is recommended that goals remain intact for a 3-year period to ensure sustainable growth and progress. The 2020-23 Sierra Sands Unified School District goals are: 1, provide a rigorous academic program which promises college and career readiness. 2, maximize student engagement and achievement. 3, grow family and community partnerships that benefit students. 4, guarantee safe and well-maintained facilities. 5, develop, value, and retain a high-quality, diverse educational team. District goals provide the focus for budgetary decisions at the district and site levels. District goals are reflected in the Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, and each site's School Plan for Student Achievement, SPSAs, which require funding sources to be identified in attaining goals. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the district goals for 2020-23 as presented.
Move recommended action.
This is Kurt, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by board members? Hearing none, I will call for the
Yeah,
vote.
just-
Wait, I'm sorry, go ahead. Mr. Rockwell?
Yeah, just real quick, I think we had a great discussion about this. It's my experience is that, from year to year, we've typically tweaked our goals a little bit. This year, I think we were pretty well solid that we actually crafted some enduring goals last time, and I'm glad we didn't make any changes, and B, I'm glad we had a lot of detailed discussion about whether we should or shouldn't in the process. So I think it was a good process we went through.
Thank you, Mr. Rockwell. Any other comments from board members? I guess in tagging on to that, I would also like to comment that I think as we reviewed them, it was clear to me that those goals were very much in consideration as we've moved through the difficult time that we're doing right now, keeping those particular goals in mind so that we can address the kinds of programs we're putting together to meet these goals. And I felt that was a confirmation of just what you said, Kurt, about the legitimacy of those specific goals. Any comments from staff? If not, I will call for the vote. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Aye. Myself? Aye. It's unanimous. Moves us to Construction Administration. Report to the Board, construction activities and issues. Mr. Coit.
President Scott, members of the board, Superintendent Ostash, staff, and community, I'm pleased to give this presentation highlighting some of the ADA accessibility projects that were completed this past summer as required by DSA for a 20% match to our exigent earthquake repairs. I'm also happy to share with you pictures of 7 new shelters that were installed to replace the ones damaged by the 2019 earthquakes. So this first one is one of the several ADA ramps that were replaced at VWIG School, and the grade was too steep on them. We had to change the configuration, so beginning in the front of the school, throughout the campus, there was a few ramps that were changed, and that's one of the finished products. The next one's very interesting. Anyone familiar with that campus, the door closest to the stage to the left? Yes, some people are familiar with that campus. Had a lift inside that room, and it was obsolete. It hadn't worked for years, and obviously having our special needs students in that school, we felt that was something that needed to be addressed, and we looked at replacing the lift. But we realized that even if we replaced the lift, going out the back door, there was no way to get back out. So we built this ramp, and so you start like you're heading out that side door to the south. You turn the corner, that's going up the ramp now. So we took out some space and built this hall with the ramp continuing to go up. Then you take another left and you turn the corner and you go up onto the stage. So that allows accessibility coming and going at the proper grade, and we don't have to continue to have inspections on the wheelchair lift. So we think that was a valuable project. Lunch shelters, that's the VWIG lunch shelter and the VWIG playground shelter that was put up this summer. That's the new Fowler lunch shelter. The new Fowler playground shelter. We had several ADA accessibility projects at James Monroe School, and this is the front of the school where we changed one of the drop-off areas. We upgraded accessible parking. We used to have that fenced off. We didn't change too much with the parking spots themselves, but they were not accessible when the gate was closed. So we moved the gate back. And that's a picture of where the gate's located now. And that gate can be closed to secure the campus, and we then have an accessible gate there on the sidewalk. So that was the upgrades. There were also some interior ADA upgrades that I didn't include in this. Gateway, rather than having stairs like you used to have for the entrance of the campus, now we have a ramp going up to the main entrance to the office. And we upgraded some of the parking, a new curb cut, so we have a straight shot from the ADA parking spaces to the entrance of the campus. This is the Pierce Kindergarten shelter. They had a shelter over their sand area, and we maintain that. Many people ask what the other cinder block containment is there. New code required that someone that, because it was a sand play area, someone in a wheelchair had to also be able to play in the sand. So we will fill that with sand. And if they have an activity, then a wheelchair can be pulled alongside that area. It'll be filled to the top with sand. And if there's whatever you're doing in the sand, it'll be available to those students. And that's the lunch shelter at Pierce and the Pierce Playground Shelter. So that's kind of the highlights of what we did this summer with some of our projects. Any questions?
Any questions by board members?
I said, I noticed there's gutters in all the shelters, which is kind of interesting in the desert, but I guess that was part of the design.
Yeah, I
Just something get clogged up and maintenance has to clean them out with leaves. That's the only bad thing about gutters in the desert.
I think going forward, it was probably something we should have removed because there'll be a problem down the road. But the shelter itself is very well built. You know, we had those old wooden ones up there in the past that were problematic, and this was an opportunity to put, I think, a good solid structure up.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Coit.
Thank you.
Move to item 10.2, approval of proposal with IBI Group for engineering design services associated with the existing Richmond Elementary School.
In February of 2019, the district was invited by the Department of Defense Office of Economic Adjustment to submit a proposal for grant funding for modernization or replacement of Richmond Elementary School. This proposal must include a feasibility analysis comparing the cost of modernization with the cost of replacement. In addition, the district is working with the Office of Public School Construction, OPSC, on an application for facility hardship funding for the existing Richmond campus. Under OPSC rules, if a decision is made to build a new school, this funding could be used as match funding for that effort rather than to modernize the existing campus. It is necessary to have an estimated cost to make the necessary repairs to the existing Richmond campus. The district contacted IBI Group, the architect responsible for the design of the new Richmond Elementary School, to obtain the services of structural, mechanical, plumbing, and electrical engineers to perform detailed assessments of the existing Richmond campus. These assessments will be used to define the complete scope of work and associated cost that will be incurred by the district if the school were to be reopened to students. It is the district's preference to use the independent cost estimator Cumming Incorporated to ensure that the cost estimate is as accurate as possible. This cost estimate will be used to develop a cost-benefit analysis justifying replacement of the school versus modernization and to qualify for facility hardship funding from OPSC. The proposed price for these services is $122,980. Per conversation with the DoD OEA point of contact, 80% of this cost will be funded by grant funds and the remaining 20% will be funded by Fund 40 Capital Facilities Fund. It is recommended that the board approve the proposal with IBI Group for engineering design services associated with the Richmond campus.
Mike's trying to second.
It's been moved, and since I
Mike.
can't hear Mike, I'll just second it. And I'll ask if there are any comments or questions from board members.
I just have one. So the DoD grant is really to build a new campus off base, but on federal property still. This money is just to get our OPSC hardship money.
Two things. So So in order to make a case to DOD that it's more cost-effective for us to build a new school at an alternate location rather than modernizing the existing school,
Right.
we need to have detailed estimates of what it would cost to modernize the school. And then we can make a case that says we would put so much money into modernizing Richmond that it's more cost-effective to build the new campus.
Did we do that with Murray? I don't remember doing that with Murray.
I wasn't a part of that
Yeah,
project,
I
so I'm
thought
not
that-
sure.
Yeah, I don't think we did, but yeah. It's just interesting they're making us do it this time, where last time they didn't, and it's $120,000 that we shouldn't.
But
the
on
federal
top of
government-
that, though, the more critical component, so really what we're doing it for is so that we can get facility hardship funding from
Correct.
OPSC.
Yeah,
But when we had the conversation with DOD, because we can use that same data to make the feasibility case for the grant, we could also apply some of the funding to the grant.
okay.
And
So it's a win-win then.
it's a mutual
Okay.
benefit for the district to do this
Great.
analysis.
Thank you.
If I may add, I just wanted to comment that Mike Watanabe and Lisa Silverman at the Office of Public School Construction have been extremely helpful to this district for quite a few years. But in this particular case, they have been, I believe you'd agree, Pam, that
Yep.
they have demonstrated a willingness to get to know our district, to follow up, to provide really sound advice, and to help walk us through our team, along with our some of our consultants and such, identifying some very nuanced strings of funding that are available that will be very helpful down the line. Now, granted, like a lot of funding that filters through OPSC, it might be a few years before we see some of this funding, but we anticipate it to be pretty significant funding. There are some alignment issues that we need to hope for. For example, there may need to be another voter-approved round of bonds, state bonds that are sold before, and we know they get approved. It's just, if one doesn't get approved, we might have to wait a little longer. But we're very confident and very appreciative that OPSC is walking us through a process right now.
And our DOD POC participated in that conversation and gave us the impression that it would be valuable data for our proposal, and then could be applied to some of the grant funds.
And I would just like to comment how much I appreciate that kind of diligence and scrutiny that allows us to recognize this additional source of funding to move our district forward. I know that sometimes it's easy to not end up qualifying because you miss a T or a dotted I somewhere, and so this is I think it's just encouraging again that we've worked on behalf of our taxpayers to provide a better product with less specific district funds involved, and knowing last time when we went through the project there was an attempt to get state funds that we didn't really finally materialize, and I think this is a good way to help get that coordinated, and so I appreciate that effort. So I believe we have a motion and a second, correct?
I have a question or two. So we are expecting that we will find a financial gain out of this in excess of $120,000. Is there an estimate as to what we think this will be worth to us?
The current estimate, somewhere between $4 and $5 million, would be the minimum that the facility hardship might contribute. It's also percentage based of various things, but it's 50% of the match amount that the district has, and it's based on some of the parameters of Richmond. But it's millions.
Okay, good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Any comments from staff? I'll call for the vote. Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous. Moves us to 10.3, approval of district standard for construction materials and equipment. Mrs. Smith.
So at a regular meeting of the board on November 20th of 2014, certain products were approved as quote-unquote district standards for construction materials and equipment. That standardization has allowed cost-effective procurement of replacement parts, minimal inventory stock of parts and supplies, depth of knowledge and experience with equipment leading to effective maintenance and repair of equipment by district staff, and operational efficiency across the district. As a result of the current design activities associated with the new Richmond Elementary School construction project, the Director of Construction and Maintenance and Operations Department and staff have determined it is in the best interest of the district to consider a significant update to the standards. The updated list is attached to this board item. There is no immediate financial implication. Utilizing the standards over time will benefit the district in cost savings related to inventory, storage, procurement, as well as staff time spent to repair and service equipment and assemblies. It is recommended that the board approve the district standard for construction materials and equipment as presented.
We recommend action.
Been moved by Tim.
Mike, second.
Mike seconds. Any questions or comments from board members?
There's that one.
Tim?
So these standards materials are stuff that probably we've put into Murray School as we designed it, and all our modernization projects that we have done those. Is that kind of the standard we've selected for our future projects?
And I'll defer to Randy because Randy actually is the one that developed
Right.
this standard for us.
So kind of a couple different criteria. There's a lot more for technology this time. And
Might want to get up right to the microphone. So thank you.
There's a lot more for technology this time around, so I worked with Mr. Morrison and asked, what are you using right now? What do you want to see in the new school? And we try not to duplicate keeping parts, so this way, one system, if you have to keep a spare part, you only have to keep one on the shelf rather than two different types of parts. And also it comes down to what's the staff trained to repair. So there's a lot more technology items. We removed some maintenance items that we thought became problematic in bidding the last time. So you notice there's nothing in there for roofing. And you probably remember some of the things we went through with roofing on the last project. Even though we have a specification, we're not going to make it a district standard, so we can be more competitive. So we've gone both ways on this. The things that worked well, we kept, and the things that were problematic, we removed from the standards. Door hardware is one that maintenance goes through a lot of parts, so we want to make sure the new project has the door hardware that we're familiar with and we use throughout the district. So that's kind of how we develop.
Okay. Yeah, because I know we did some stuff with lighting that we had to call in professional consultants to replace some lighting or something that we couldn't do locally. So I was wondering if that was part of the new standard, something we can do ourselves.
Lighting is going to continue. It's Title 24 that affects that.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're going to push to. We have in there that outside lighting will be controlled by our building automation system, but still the battery backup systems that I think we're going to see them again in the new school. I don't think we can avoid those, although we will try.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments from board members? I'd just like to comment, I really appreciate this kind of proactive, thoughtful, far-sighted action, because in the long run, I know it saves us a lot of money, both in effort, time, and product costs. And so that's the kind of thing that excites me, is when we're not just reacting, but thoughtfully taking action that moves us forward in the future. So thank you so much for that. If I hear no other comments or questions, I will call for the vote. Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott? Are you on mute?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Rockwell?
On mute. Aye.
Aye, yeah, Mike's in Tibet, so his signal's not very good.
Mr. Johnson? Aye. And myself, aye. It's unanimous. We move to item 10.4, approval to enter into an agreement with Asbestos Service Incorporated and Versatile Coatings Incorporated for abatement replacement of fireproofing materials at the Performing Arts Center.
So as we all know, the district suffered damage to its facilities as a result of 2 earthquakes in July of 2019, and one of the buildings damaged was the Performing Arts Center at Burroughs High School. Over the course of the last 14 months, the district has worked with Colombo Construction, Ortiz Melby Architects, and the Division of State Architecture to analyze, design, and obtain approval for planned construction to repair that building. The district is now ready to commence those repairs. In order to repair the ceiling tiles damaged in the earthquake, it is necessary to replace the entire grid structure to bring it to current building code requirements. Because the new grid will be attached to the existing ceiling, it will be necessary to disturb asbestos-containing fireproofing material that currently coats that portion of the ceiling. It is therefore necessary to install dance floor scaffolding, demolish and abate the asbestos-containing material, and replace it with non-hazardous fireproofing material before the installation of the replacement grid can be accomplished. Colombo Construction solicited bids for these services and has recommended that Asbestos Services Incorporated and Versatile Coatings Incorporated be awarded the contracts. The cost for the abatement and the replacement of the fireproofing material is $230,000 for the Asbestos Services and $15,375 for Versatile Coatings. It is anticipated that 75% of this funding will be reimbursed by the California Office of Emergency Services, and the remaining 25% will come from Fund 40, Capital Facilities Fund. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board authorize the district to enter into agreements with Asbestos Services Incorporated and Versatile Coatings Incorporated for abatement and replacement of fireproofing materials at the Performing Arts Center.
It's Kurt, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Kurt with the second. Any questions or comments from board members? Mike, do you have a question, or are you? Looks like no. Okay, then I will take a vote. Mr. Scott? What did he?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson? Aye. Myself, aye. That's unanimous. We'll move us to Business Administration. 11.1, Ms. Smith, approval of Resolution 12, 2021, authorization for temporary borrowing between funds for design and construction of projects to occur within the district.
On January 16th of 2009, the Office of Public School Construction released a document called Bridge Financing Interfund Borrowing Policy for Financial Hardship Districts, detailing the procedures that must be followed if a district is temporarily using district funds to move forward with a school construction project in anticipation of receiving OPSC financial hardship funding at a future date. One of the requirements is to obtain approval of a board resolution authorizing the district to borrow funds through interfund borrowing that complies with Ed Code. The district intends to apply for financial hardship funding through OPSC to help fund the Richmond Elementary School construction project. This resolution will enable the district to repay internal funds used for that project with OPSC financial hardship funds if they become available at a future date. And I do need to note that passage of this resolution is not a guarantee that the district would qualify for financial hardship or that there would be financial hardship funding available for the district at a future date, but we are wanting the resolution on our books in the event that that does transpire in the future. There's no financial implication at this time, and the superintendent recommends that the board adopt resolution number 12, 2021, authorization for temporary borrowing between funds for the design and construction of projects to occur within the district.
It's been moved, and do I have a second? If not, I'll second by Kurt. Is that Kurt?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? Then I will take a vote. Mr. Scott?
Mr. Scott? Aye.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Aye. Myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. We'll move to 11.3, approval to enter into a purchase order with Oakhurst Signs and Graphics for U-shaped sneeze guards for student desks.
That will be me, Mr. Ferris. Well, we've been scaling up with PPE, personal protective equipment, for quite some time. And part of that process is getting ready for when we do have students and staff coming back into the classrooms. The Human Resources Department is responsible for the implementation of the COVID-19 school safety plan that will be used throughout the district. Within the plan, there are many considerations for the safety of the staff and students in the classroom that require supplies or equipment. CDPH and Cal OSHA have all provided updated COVID-19 health and safety guidelines. One of the safety considerations in their update is regarding classroom space. In addition to the standard COVID-19 safety recommendations, such as wearing face coverings, physical distancing, hand washing, etc., they recommend the use of sneeze guards as an additional barrier to the spreading of germs. The sneeze guards are manufactured in a U shape and come with clips so that they can be used, so they can be secured to each student's desk. A sneeze guard manufacturing company, Oakhurst Signs and Graphics, was selected, and they provided samples of some of the different sizes and styles they offer. After meeting with site principals and lead custodians to get their input, we determined the size that would be the most effective. 2 different sizes were selected. One is smaller and one will be used in our TK through 5th grade classrooms, and the other is taller and will be used at the secondary sites. The cost of 1,043 elementary and 1,345 secondary student desk sneeze guards is approximately $115,578. The CARES grant, the federal money, CARES grant dollars will be used to purchase the sneeze guards, so the cost will not impact our general fund. I recommend to the board that you approve the purchase order with Oakhurst Signs and Graphics for these U-shaped sneeze guards for student desks.
I have a motion by Tim and a second by...
Second.
He's asking me to, yeah.
I think that was Mike, right?
Yeah, that was Mike.
Okay. All
and,
right.
and a few others.
Yes. We're getting there fast. Okay. Any questions or comments by board members? Other than the snicker by Mr. Johnson.
Well, I think the thing is, I mean, it's great we're buying them, but now we're going to have, it's like $5,000 to ship them, which is, it is what it is. But then we have, 5,000 desk coverings to store somewhere later on. I mean, it's awesome we have them, but it's a long-term logistics of sneeze guards and what do you do with them and how do you dispose of them when you're done, and it's.
That is precisely the discussion among many discussions we've had, and good thing is we figured out we didn't need 5,000 of them. I mean, we have 5,000 students, but
right.
Then we thought, we're not going to have 5,000 students in the classroom right away when these are needed.
So we have half.
Absolutely right. At some point, these become relics, and they fill up the Sierra Vista Center, or they
fill up a landfill somewhere.
The landfill. Right.
I mean, it's CARES money. It's federally funded. We need to do it for safety of our staff and our students, but at the same time, it seems like the tail of these things is it worth it? Is it worth the money to do it? But I mean, the federal government's paying for it. I'm glad we're getting them, but at the same time, it's going to be a huge burden on somebody later on to figure out what to do with them.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I'm glad we're getting them for the students and the staff, but it's an interesting dilemma.
And clean them on a regular basis.
And clean them every day. So I guess the question is, I mean, is our protocol going to be with a sneeze guard, you don't have to wear a mask for students since you have the sneeze guard?
No, they would still be utilizing face coverings.
So that's a hellacious sneeze if you can blow through my mask and through the face guard.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members? Any questions from staff? If not, we will call for the vote. Mr. Scott?
Mr. Scott? Aye.
Excellent. Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Makes it unanimous. We now will temporarily adjourn the meeting of the Sierra Sands Unified School District and conduct the Indian Kern Schools Financing Authority Board meeting. And we will move to, let me change screens here, to the adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
No changes.
If no changes, we move to the approval of the minutes. If there are no changes, they will stand as presented. Moving into 3 Business Administration, authorization to utilize Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority funding for district school facilities projects. Mrs. Smith.
It is the stated purpose of the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority to utilize the funds it receives for Sierra Sands Unified School District, school facilities, and related purposes. In September of 2016, when reporting unaudited actuals information, the board approved designating the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority as the appropriate fund source for use for its facilities and modernization needs. The district has a number of current and anticipated school facilities projects for which the related expenses are appropriate for the use of these funds. It is the intent of this board item to request that expenditures and related transfers from the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority Fund be authorized for those specific items for which immediate funding is required, as well as designating items for which anticipated funds will be required per the attached listing. It should be noted that all of the costs are cited as not to exceed amounts. Funding for any other projects listed are designated now in order to proceed in a timely fashion. The current fund balance is $822,416. Financial implication, board authorization to obligate funds not to exceed $822,416 is requested through this item. It is recommended that the board approve the request to fund the items on the attached list with Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority dollars and the related transfer of funds and expenditures in the not to exceed amounts provided. Total costs are anticipated to be approximately $822,416.
It's been moved by Mr. Johnson. Second by Kurt. Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members? I would just make one comment that doesn't have to do with this specific decision, but just as you look at the ledger there's a rather frightening
Trend.
slope there from income that I certainly think we need to be cautious and aware of, because this has been a source of contribution to our district for a long time, and it looks a little scary.
Agreed. Dave and I kind of looked at that calculation today to analyze why that possibly is, and it's based on both their tax revenues and their LCFF allocations.
Yeah.
Both have the ability to impact that amount that we get.
Yep. Especially when the original estimate was we'd be into about $5 million a year when they started this plan, but yeah, things change, right?
Things always change.
Okay, so I will call for the vote. Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mr. Rockwell? Did we hear Mr. Rockwell?
No.
Mr. Rockwell?
Aye, sorry, I'm
Thank-
fumbling with my computer.
That's all right. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
And myself is aye. It's unanimous. It moves us into the consent calendar.
Move entire consent calendar.
Oh, I guess I'm supposed to adjourn first. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Adjourn the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority Board meeting and move back into reconvene the Sierra Sands Unified School District, and then we do the consent calendar.
Move entire consent calendar.
It's been moved, and I will second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott?
Aye.
There we go. Mr. Rockwell?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
And myself, aye, it is unanimous. Oh, the challenges of life, huh? Any future agenda items? If not, we will move to adjournment, and the next regular board meeting will be November the 19th. Thank you for being here this evening, and we certainly invite our public to join us on the 19th as we continue our saga.
You guys have a great evening.